And we are.
We're live.
You get that before I do. Cool.
Hi. Hi, Nance.
Hello. Oh, I hear me.
Yep. We should turn that down.
Okay, but where am I? Where are we? Hello. Hello.
Hey, Dominic Oaxaca's watching.
There we are. We already got comments. Hey, Nance. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. It is a beautiful Tuesday, the last one of the month of January. I don't know about y'all, but where the heck did January go? It has been forever, right? Since we have had one of these. I was thinking about that. It's like, wow, it feels like it's been forever. It really hasn't. It's only been 2 months, but let's, William Sallant. Wow. What? Making an appearance. Yay. So to the folks that are on Facebook Live, would love to know if you have any topics that you would like to talk about tonight. We would love to dive into those. And what I wanted to start with tonight is the fact that it's already the 29th of January and we're already a month into this year. And how's the year going? And talk about, honestly, with my my High5 team here, so they do not know I'm going to ask them this question, but that's no big surprise to any of them. Yeah, what's something that you've learned about yourself in the last 30 days that you would want to share with the world?
Are you asking us?
I am asking you.
Wow. Gosh, I haven't thought about it. Something that I learned over the last 30 days.
I'll go first. The thing that came to mind that I've known before, but the thing that became most prevalent this month was whatever I project out is what I get back. And so for years and years, I'm self-described pessimist, up until now. And so I would routinely share, it just became easy for me to share what was bad. Did you see what that was in the news? The weather's supposed to be bad. Whatever it is, came out, the first thing to come out was negative. And what I found within the last few years was, when I talk to people, they just tell me what's wrong? I don't understand that. But I was doing it first. So then I found as I don't do that, as I focus on the positive, tell them what's going great, what I like, what I've learned, then they respond in a like manner. It's not always 100%, but it is a noticeable shift. So I learned that in the classroom, but I've also seen the differences outside the classroom, just in everyday life. And that's with everybody. That's with my wife, that's with my kids, that's with just the people I talk to. Whatever I give to them is what they give back. And whatever somebody gives me is what's easiest to give back. If somebody comes at me with a great attitude, it's easy to come back with them with a great attitude. And when somebody comes to me negative, the tendency is to commiserate rather than to shift the focus. So that becomes something for me too, is when they come to me with the negative now, is like a little exercise to see if I can shift the focus just by saying something different or mentioning something of gratitude, and to see if I can get them to shift gears. And it works.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite sayings. This shit works.
Yeah. Well, and we know we teach that the bigger energy prevails, right? And so if you're bringing, if your positive is bigger than the negative in the room, then you will overcome. It's amazing to me how quickly a negative energy, attitude, perspective can just suck the air out of a room.
Mm-hmm. Certainly can. Certainly can. That's awesome, Dominic. Thank you for sharing that. You actually sparked something, and we've been joking a little bit about this. You know, you and I have, and I think it came up on one of our calls even today. And that is that negative people annoy me. And I recognize that I get to be very negative about negative people. And I was like, wow, that was really being judgmental about other people being judgmental. Like, oh, yeah, I still got some work to do. Yeah.
No, I did the same thing. And what's really cool is just shifting that focus. So we've had that also that conversation about the difference between the feelings of being nervous and the feelings of being excited. All the same feelings, all the same physical responses, but the difference in that shift of how you perceive it or how you approach those feelings or how you interpret them means a big difference. So rather than say I'm really nervous, I'm really anxious, those same exact feelings come up with when you're excited, is to tell yourself that you're excited and something great is about to happen, and the energy shifts. And that's what was that's also useful in shifting what you were just talking about, because I do the same thing. Somebody does that and they tell me about politics or whatever the topic of the day is, and I'm thinking, wow, who wants to talk about that negative shit? But I'm doing the same thing. So rather than shift that to, that's really cool, that is now, I'm grateful for that because it's an opportunity to practice. Or now I'm gauging where I'm at by where they're at. So gauging those as opportunities. And that took years and years from the experiences of prior, teachings and the classes that we went through and everything that we've worked on over the years, of when something happens, that's a gift. That when Murphy happens, that's a gift. That's a chance. And I've always said this too to my employees when I had people working for me: be thankful for those times when we're in a pinch, because it's impossible to become extraordinary with ordinary circumstances. So if everything went the way it was supposed to go every day, who cares? But when you overcome something, that's how the underdog wins. Everybody loves an underdog. That's how you overcome. That's how you become extraordinary, above and beyond. To ever get to above and beyond, you had to have been behind at one point. So to a start, I'm not saying every day, but to a start. So be thankful when those things happen to overcome. That's an opportunity to go above and beyond. You've just given an opportunity to do that. So shifting that back into the focus, it's something new for me, to be honest with you. It's something lately, because my tendency was to commiserate. It was or keeping up with the Joneses. You think that's bad, and come up with something a little bit better.
Let me tell you what's going on in my life.
Yeah, that's nothing. My life's way worse than yours. So rather than do that, to shift the focus is something I'm still working on, but it does work.
Yeah, it really, really does work. Awesome. Hey, all you Facebook buddies out there. Hi, first of all, thank you for joining us. And if you've got some thoughts on whatever we're talking about, but if you got some things you would like to talk about, would love to hear what's on your mind tonight. So that's, we are 100% unscripted to the fact that I asked these guys a question that I didn't prep them with before we got on. And so let us know. We miss you too, Cindy. Snuggly bear. Yeah, it was like snuggly bear. Yep.
Who are these?
Come to a High5 class, get a nickname.
Get a nickname.
Get a nickname. Absolutely. Cool.
So one of the things as you were talking that, because I was sitting here thinking, so what have I learned about myself in the last 30 days?
Nothing. All good.
Yep, I'm good. and then you started talking, and that whole thing about projecting what I see in others, understanding that that's usually a projection of myself. And so one of the things that, and I don't remember where we read this, I think it was one of our book club books, but it might not have been, it doesn't really matter, but the whole idea of there I go again, right? So every time I recognize something that stands out to me, usually if it has a negative, if I have a negative perception on it, catching myself and saying, there I go again. So what I'm recognizing out in the world is really the things that I'm seeing in myself. And usually it's things that I don't want to see. And it's creating great awareness for me. It's allowing me to be more empathetic. It's allowing me to choose to be more positive. And so it's just that awareness of it, and then having the courage to acknowledge, where else am I? So as an example, we were coming home from Houston Sunday night, and there was this screechy harpy lady. Oh, there was this lovely grandmotherly figure.
No, that was the mother. That was the
mom.
Oh,
that was the mom.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you were that whole judgment about negative people thing. I did a lot of that on Sunday night on this particular instance.
So
not one of my more proud moments.
Group of about 8 people, I think, mom, dad, kids, and grandparents coming on the plane, and mom is just being awful to these kids, telling them, you stop that or I'll throw you off this plane. So help me,
I'll throw you off this plane.
Yeah.
Shut up, sit down.
Oh my gosh, it was awful.
It was awful.
And in that, and Michelle and I were commenting to each other about it, and I caught myself saying, okay, so where else? So not just the fact that I was observing her behavior, but I internalized it and thought, okay, so where am I showing up like that with my kids? Mm-hmm. So it caused me to take pause and think about how am I interacting with the people in my life? So that's what I've been aware of.
Is that our next question to answer?
I don't know.
Well, it's beautiful awareness, because and that's really what this is all about, right? This whole journey that we're on is just becoming more self-aware, because we can fool ourselves like nobody's business. I want to talk about, you guys are probably looking too, William said, and I love, so thank you, Will, for writing this. 2019 has been a big contrast so far from 2018. Last year I was working on something all year in a program with clear structure, syllabus, homework, deadlines, and in the last 13 days, having graduated from that program, it's all gone off the rails, or he's gone off the rails. Not doing anything self-destructive, but no structure and resisting it. God, I can actually think of some other analogies. Dominic, Mr. Analogy King over there. He said, I didn't really expect any of that. I just thought that the momentum would carry over from last year. Ooh, this sounds like a lot that has to do with our book that we're reading
right now. Yep. Totally,
The Slight Edge, which, William, you've read. I'm pretty sure that he has. And, it's the thing that when we take our eye off the outcome or just decide, and I always go back to the whole lose weight thing, right? I'm going to lose weight for whatever event or whatever it is. As soon as I get to that event and I stop the behaviors that got me to the outcome that I was set on, then all of a sudden the weight comes back on, right? It's one that a lot of people can relate to. And it's the same with life, which is when we stop doing the things that got us to that level of success, that's what happens. We just go back into old behaviors. And so it's those small daily habits that keep us focused. So in your case, it's what's next, right? So now that you don't have that particular outcome or that structure, I know you still have outcomes. So now how do you create the structure? The structure was created for you. How do you create the structure? I was actually just having this, wow, I love how this squeeze, just having this conversation with somebody right before this call about creating structure. So when I started High5 and started working out of my house, I loved the freedom. It was great, right? I didn't have to show up for anybody or anything. And yeah, that didn't work out so well for me. So guess what time? We have 8 o'clock meetings almost every single day of the week. It's not by accident, people. It's because that creates the structure. Because otherwise I'd still be hanging at the beach, right? You know, doing my thing. And so it's now getting clear. So I love the awareness and the recognition that Will's had about that. And now what's the outcome and what are the steps to start to get there?
You know, one thing that was a buzzword and what he says was the word momentum. So William worked really hard to get whatever he has and to achieve whatever he's achieved, you know, to get where he did last year. And I know what his goals were. I mean, he shared with us what he wanted to do to get it certified. And to take personal responsibility for that, I mean, literally appreciating that you worked hard to get to where you were. It wasn't something that was called momentum. Momentum can be an adjective to use to all the little things that you did, you know, right out of the book that we were talking about, The Slight Edge. All the little things that you did, put all together, compounded, has got you to where you were. There's no such thing as momentum by itself. You don't walk out the door and momentum just swept you away and gave you the paper. That's not how that works. So momentum can use to describe all those things put together into one big wheel, but it's not something that, right, like the momentum would carry over. The momentum doesn't do anything. It's not a separate entity. That comes from inside you and the little things you do. Yeah. So that's, and I think that happens, like what you were saying, that happens, that we make that mistake with that word, and not necessarily that we all use that word, but that's what they talk about in The Slight Edge. That's exactly what they talk about, is once you get to where you're going and you're headed in the right path, you just take the foot off the gas and the car's going to drive itself from now on. But that's not how you got to where you were already.
Right.
Good. And he added some other stuff that he did get back on track, and good stuff, Will. Mm-hmm. But recognizing the pattern and getting yourself back on track quickly is the whole key, right? Versus just watching it happen. So good stuff. Yay. Oh, he gave you a very true, Dominic. Look at you.
Very true.
And welcome to everybody. Oh my gosh.
Yay.
Excited to see you all here.
Hey. My pal Vanessa's on. Hi, Vanessa. Hi, man. nuts.
And Dan Clark wanted to give you a high five for really embracing, right, the change that's going on in your life and catching your stories and continuing to rewrite them. There's, the moving across country, moving is one of the most stressful things, right? They have the list of all the stressful things that we can do in our life, and that's one of them. And
the top 10 stressors for a reason.
Yeah. So, and this is when we get to practice, right? So we practice every single day writing a new story, and it all comes back to stories. And I just got off a phone call and we talked about stories, and I don't know that I ever have a phone call that I don't talk about stories, in the fact that it's the story that we're telling ourselves that's creating our reality. And we can create that story about, and I'll go back to Dan for a second, that, oh, this is like the worst thing because, I'm leaving my kids behind. Well, or what's the positive and how do I do that? So I love the fact that Dan, you shared on Facebook, that you spent time playing video games with your son, right? And I love technology, right? So all of the negative stories that some people have about technology, the fact that we can do that, and we can FaceTime, and we can do this right here. And so that's the positive of all of that. And so what is the story that we're creating that's going to get us to the outcome? Now, what I started to say, and then I'm going to shut up for a bit, is you got to practice writing the stories when it's easy to write the new story. So that when we get into those stressful situations, like moving across the country or something, somebody dies, some of those things that are big emotional challenges in our life, if we've done the practice on the easy days, then we're going to be able to stay positive. And doesn't mean we're not going to feel the emotion, but we're going to be able to stay positive because we will have that tool well ingrained. And I just think that's so important. If we wait and we don't practice, we're going to fall back into the old patterns and behaviors. The joy comes in the practice, folks. The joy comes in the falling down and getting back up. The joy comes in just embracing that there's something to be learned in everything.
Yay. All right, so is that my turn to answer your question?
It is.
So for those of you that are just joining us, Barb threw out the question to the High5 team and to Facebook land. This is for you all too. About what we've learned about ourselves in the last 30 days, given that it's the end of January and New Year. And I actually have had a lot of learning around my emotions, my focus on my emotions. I'm not really sure how to articulate that. So I'll just tell a story. So I have spent a lot of time, and this is something that we talk about in our classes too. I've spent a lot of time focused on what I don't want. So where that specifically is true is with my kids. I've focused a lot on what I don't want for my kids. I don't want them to, I don't ever want them to feel unloved. I don't ever want them to feel like I'm not available for them. I don't, all the I don't wants. And instead of focusing on the positive and the things that I do want. So I want my kids to always feel loved. I want my kids to know that I'm available for them anytime, that whole thing. And what I learned was, because I was so focused on the things that I don't want, that's ultimately what I got. And when I realized that, because I hear it, I hear it in our classes, however many times have I heard it, right? And even said it. And then I had a kind of a come to Jesus conversation with two of my daughters, and in talking to them, I realized that I had created for them, by all the focus on what I don't want, I have created for them all the things that I didn't want them to have. And it was heartbreaking, and it was awakening. It was an awakening. So I told them that. I was vulnerable with them. I told them about where my head was and what I had been doing. And, now it looks like I've done exactly what I didn't want to do. And so it was an awesome learning opportunity for me. And it was a great bonding, I guess is the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure. Bonding experience for the girls and I. And so that we kind of wiped the slate, started more in the same place. And now they understand where I'm coming from. And I have expressed it more in these are the things I want for you instead of these are the things I don't want for you. And of course, the things I don't want for them were all coming from a place of love and being a mom and taking care of and protecting my babies. And again, it's the focus on the negative instead of the focus on the positive. And so if this is confusing for people, I'll use a simpler example. I don't want stress in my life. Well, so if I'm saying I don't want stress, what am I still focused on? Still focused on stress. So instead, I would say my life is peaceful. Yep. Or my life will be peaceful. Something like that. See, there. I know you guys know that. I'm just saying that for the general population. For the masses. All the masses. Yes. Anyway. So that was my big one.
It's such a good one, Michelle. And it's, I know that there are folks out there that it's semantics. And we could even go into the science behind it.
Right.
The bottom line, and we've all kind of said a lot of the same things, just in a different context, which makes sense. It's what's getting our attention, the stuff that we don't like or we don't want, or the things that we do like and we do want. And we know that what you focus on is what you're going to get. And yet we still have to learn that lesson sometimes, many times. Y'all have heard me say, it's like, do I really need to learn this for the 112th time? And the answer is, yeah, yes it is.
Yes.
I just sometimes, and Will said it earlier in what he said, yeah, be kind to myself. Maybe it's the 112th time is the charm, right? Right. Not necessarily the third time. And it's important. Dawn Marie said, thank you, Michelle, for sharing and being transparent. And that was one of the thoughts that I had that I would like to throw out for discussion here and on Facebook is, you said that you were vulnerable with your girls. Yeah. What do you all think about that? What do you think about parents being vulnerable with their children?
So my thought is it's something that I've been learning a lot over the last 6 years since I took my class. And I honestly believe, and I didn't believe this until I knew what I know now. I didn't know what I didn't know because I grew up with a mother who was very strong, and there was never any vulnerability, and it was weakness, and felt like she had to fight for everything. And then what I realized when I thought about it, and when I had the conversations, when we had our learning in my class, I'm not giving anything valuable to my kids or the people in my life unless I am being vulnerable with them. I'm not. So when I'm being vulnerable with them, I'm showing them how to be truly themselves. And I'm showing them the strength that it takes to be all in a relationship.
Yeah. That it's okay for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And he says it takes the relationship to a whole new level from the daughter perspective.
Yeah.
Right? So,
yeah. And I believe that. I have seen that.
you know, and just thinking about my own, I didn't have that kind of relationship with my mom. And I really didn't ever get to experience that level of connection with her. Because, and most of it was because of her stories and how she was raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly didn't learn that until much later in my life, that it was okay to be vulnerable and to be real.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, so the irony is I know so many females who are, I've heard from so many women, he never talks to me. He never communicates me. I ask him what he's thinking. He's nothing, you know, or they just ask, what are you thinking? Nothing, you know, whatever. And so often they are not truly in or truly vulnerable, so that it creates a trusting environment where he feels like he can say, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm feeling.
And in most of those cases, those women, because I know some of the women she's talking about, they have a story that I'm a strong, independent woman, and strong, independent women don't show vulnerability. That equals weakness.
Wonder where they adopted that from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we just
and so it's a double-edged sword. And I just contend that if we all just let the walls down, the relationships would be so much more fulfilling and happy and shit and fun. God, with everybody's walls banging into everybody's walls, it's so much work.
For as much as we work to protect ourselves by building the wall, we just get bruised up by banging into everybody else's wall.
Right.
You know, and I've said many times, my poor ex, right? And he's given me absolute permission to talk about anything in our lives, which I think is really sweet now. But he didn't have a chance. And I accept my responsibility now in all of our relationship, because I was that person you guys were just talking about. I was her. I would ask him and be like, oh, he would never share with me. Well, what was I doing?
Right.
I thought he should know. You know, he should know how I felt. Well, how the heck would he know if I didn't tell him?
Absolutely. And it's an unfair, it's unfair to everyone in that position, male or female.
Mr. Galuzzo, oh my gosh.
That's a good response here.
You know, and this is not a battle of the sexes conversation at all. In terms of, we all practice reactive listening, and we all will benefit from being more responsive or more present listeners. And it all goes back to our programming. It all goes back to our stories. And the more we become aware of the story that we're telling ourselves, then we can do something with it. And vulnerability, it's one of my favorite topics, because it is the new strong. And you know, it was really cute in our class that we had last week, that one of the students asked, Kevin and I, if we ever wrote stories for ourselves. It's like, and I was just laughing my butt off, right? Kevin's like, no, got it all figured out, perfect, right? It is scary, Angie. You're absolutely right. Being vulnerable is scary, and it's what really creates the new opportunity, the opportunity for a real relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I finally have gotten to the point in my life where if I can't have a real relationship with somebody, it's fuzzy. And if they don't like me, it's okay.
Yeah. Next, exactly.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of, well, so we have processes in our training. So I don't think I'm giving anything away. We have processes that are comfort zone processes. Some people are okay with them, and some people feel a little uneasy about doing them through fear of embarrassment. Nothing big though. So it's the anticipation, it's the fear of embarrassment, the fear of the unknown, what makes that scary. So, and what happens almost to a person is as soon as they do it, it ceases to become scary. The scary was the anticipation. It wasn't anything in the process. So the being vulnerable, so the story of being vulnerable is scary. Totally understand it. Because I, in doing some of those processes, had that, anxiety about the process before it ever happened. So yes, in that moment, that's the problem. But the problem is always before the vulnerability, not during it. But when you're vulnerable, the only thing that becomes scary is going backwards. So when you're vulnerable to somebody, that's a fear of putting myself out there and they're going to hurt my feelings. They're going to turn it on me. They're going to use it against me. I'm going to be raw when that happens. Fact of the matter is, all those stories become moot when you do it. Then it's really not that possible to hurt you when you're always vulnerable. It really isn't. But the anticipation of being it is horrible. So that it's all an anticipation, and all that is stories built up in your mind as blockades. That's all that is.
Yep.
But getting past that and being vulnerable, like Barb was saying, is absolutely the only way you get to the truth. So you can go the rest of your life having those superficial conversations and superficial relationships. But in order to have somebody, like we were talking about earlier, maybe a spouse or a significant other that you really want to connect with, I don't think you can get there without it.
Yeah.
And I'm fairly certain nobody comes to the end of their life and says, I wish I had been more standoffish.
I wish I would have kept more secrets.
I wish I had been more closed off.
That's true.
I'm certain.
I think you're right. And it really is all about, Cindy said, it's the buildup. It's the story. It's the anticipation. It's the story. And we do it to ourselves again and again and again. And of course, the answer is just to be in the moment, be present and in the moment, because the only story you're writing has something to do with something from the past, and you're creating a future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. How many people? Oh no. I've been hurt before. I'm not doing that again. Yeah. Well, it's a different person. It's a different situation. Maybe you're a different person. It's never the same thing. Isn't it? One doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Yep. It's a new day. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Lots of good stuff here on the Facebook.
Yeah.
Although I've lost some of mine for some reason.
Well, I'm gonna do a quick little plug for our Evolve class, since we're talking about vulnerability.
Yay.
For those of you that are graduates of the one of our first intensive classes that one of us have taught. We have an advanced class. If you don't know about it yet, it's called Evolve, because it's about evolving to the next level. See, clever. See how we did that? Evolve. And it is a really cool class to do with a significant other. You don't have to. We have a lot of people that love that class that came by themselves. However, if you are in a relationship and you are both graduates of an intensive class, it is absolutely a next level class to do with a significant other, because it gives you the same perspective. So Dominic, I'm gonna have you tell your house analogy story, because I think it just is a perfect setup for what people can get out of the Evolve class.
Sure. I was speaking to somebody about it, and they happened to be a realtor. So I wanted to give them an analogy that would set up what we do. Some of you have been to our class, know that it's to give somebody the benefits without telling them exactly what we do in the class for their benefit. Sometimes can be a process. And so I was explaining to them that if you're a realtor and you're somebody wants to sell their house and you want to go by and take a look at it to see what you're dealing with, you might have the address and drive up to it, but you don't have a key to the house and they're not home. The front window is open to the great room, so you look inside and you can see the living room and you can see half of the dining room. It all looks great. The front looks great. It's well manicured. You can see that they have a 2-car garage from the outside, and you can see as much as you can of the front room and the dining room. And you go back and you tell your wife, who's your partner, you have the real estate business together, that it looks like a fantastic deal. They should go like that. House looks great. She says, does it really? I'm going to go take a look at it tomorrow. So when the wife goes back the next day to take a look at it on her own, the curtains are drawn on the front and nobody's home, and she also doesn't have a key. So she walks around to the side and looks in the side window, and through the blinds, she can see the kitchen. Kitchen's outdated. It has decor from 20 years ago, and she says, wow, whoever's going to buy this house has to totally renovate the kitchen. This might be a money pit. So she goes back and she tells the husband, I don't like it. It's got to put too much money into it. And he said, money into what? I think it looks fantastic. So that is a synopsis of what happens before our class. So in a relationship, they both saw the exact same thing, exact same address at the exact same time of day, with 2 totally different perspectives of what they saw. So when you're in a relationship with somebody, what I like about Evolve is you can keep explaining to your wife how great the great room looks all day long. And she can keep explaining to you that the room, and a lot of times we don't even use the terms. He's just saying how great the house is, and she's saying how bad it is. But it's great. No, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't know what you're talking about. When they're both right. So I told him, how valuable would it be for you if I gave you the key to the house? Would you benefit if you had the key and you both could walk in and look at all the rooms together? Would that help out? That's what our class is. So you can look at things from different perspective, or you can take that journey together and look at them together. And a lot of times we have people that have been to our intensive class, and this is Barb's. Barb said this, and I thought this was kind of cool. So you can walk around and you can look at it together and you can think, well, we've already seen the whole house. We both went to an intensive class or some type of a training class, so we've already gone through that. But surprise, surprise, there's a second story that you haven't seen yet.
The next level.
So it's okay to climb the stairs. So there's a lot that I liked about it, and it's the most accurate way I knew of explaining what we do, that what we do is a perspective. And we talk about that too, both inside and outside of class, that we have a perspective and we can only see so much. And sometimes we need an outside source to change that perspective so you can see what's behind you. So you can see things that have normally been in your blind spot. And we give you the tools to be able to do that on your own.
Yep. Pretty cool. You know, that for me, thanks, Dominic, because this whole journey, that I'm on, it's all about continuing to open the doors and take a look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while my first thought was to say it can be scary to look behind the door, that's just a story that I've created, versus just, right, opening the door and seeing what else is available, what that next level is for each of us. So
Switching that focus from nervous to excited.
Well, I was going to say, if you keep it in the context of looking at the house, it's exciting to see what's around the next corner or what's behind the next door.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah, very true. Very true. Yep. It's a choice. All comes back to number one, High5 key message. I'm at choice.
Yep.
I get to choose at everything. So, so if you want to give your significant other an amazing Valentine's Day present,
Ooh, yeah.
give them a weekend in San Diego at the Evolve class. And if you want more information, just let one of us know. It's pretty cool stuff. So, well, I think that we have used up most of our time tonight, and I'm gonna call this to a close. You guys have any final thoughts? Wow, that's like as quiet as the three of you ever are. All right, then.
So I do no, yeah. Wow.
Missed it by that much.
I got some more words. I got some words to use. It's like Festivus. It's like the airing of the grievances. One of the things another thing that just was ruminating here. I've been kind of quiet tonight, and I was thinking about a conversation that you and I had earlier today, Barb. Another awareness that I've had about myself this month, and it happened today, is I really believe that I am a believer in abundance, and I focus on abundance, and I believe there's win-win in everything. And there are a lot of places in my life that I still am focused on scarcity. I have scarcity thinking, and I didn't realize it until our conversation today, how prevalent it really is. And you said it earlier tonight, this whole thing is a practice. I've been practicing this for a long time, and I've also been practicing scarcity thinking for a long time. And so it reminded me how important it is to do that, looking in the mirror, to go the next level, right? So yeah, I've been to a lot of classes, and I continue to go to classes because there's always more to learn. Yeah. And that just kind of hit me today when we had that conversation, and I realized that all the stories that I was telling in that particular moment were all coming from a place of scarcity. So.
Mm-hmm. No, and thank you for that vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're, as I think most of you on here who know us, and most of you do, we're going to be the first ones to tell you we don't have it all figured out, and we're having a hell of a time on this ride to figure it out. Because if we're going to be here, we might as well enjoy it. And joy is available as one of our choices. Fuzzy, oh, you're so cute. All right.
Dirty eyeballs.
High5 and hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. As always, we love to hop on and just talk about whatever's going on in the world and in our lives. And
love seeing the names.
Yes.
Seeing the names and the comments. And
so many of you today.
Tell your friends all about us. Don't keep us a secret.
Yeah. So focus on a positive outcome, write your positive stories, go have life happen because of you. And remember, when you change your world, you will change the world. So make it positive. Nance, you're too funny. There's my puppy.
Puppy.
Giving me some puppy love. All right.
He's a rescue too, Nance. Anyway, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you to our incredible High5 team. Just missing Chad, but he had to work tonight, so we get that. And I love you all. And thank you to all of our High5ers, our High5 lifers out there in High5 land. And we will see you all soon. And until then, send lots of vibes and choose joy. Love y'all. Bye.
Love y'all. Bye.